Hi, welcome everybody. My name's Asha Anderson, again for another meaningful conversation today for our Transition Towns, Bay of Islands, Whangaroa network and beyond. I'd like to welcome my really good friend Barbara. We've been chatting about resilience, and so this is another follow-on from those conversations, which you can watch later if you're interested. And today we've invited another really good friend of ours, Di Maxwell, to join us. She's another person who's really passionate about resilience and our local communities and building strong local resilient communities. So welcome to you both.
Thanks, Asha. Nice to chat.
Asha, good to
I just
chat
wanted to say, I just wanted to say before we get started, Di, you are probably one of the most resilient people that I know, and you really inspire me, and so I'm really grateful to you for everything that you do, and I'm really looking forward to this chat today, and I just wanted to let you know that, you know, when it comes to personal resilience and then also being able to work in a community sphere on a higher level for everyone, you're right up there. So
Thank you, Asha.
I agree.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you, girls.
So I suppose the first question would be, you know, why are you so passionate about resilience?
I guess it goes back to when my kids were small, and that's up to 50 years ago. During that time when the children were small, and I wasn't, you know, I was a mum. I was just practicing self-sufficiency as much as I could. We were fortunate with living on a farm, so of course we had a lot of the resources that we could be resilient with. I had a huge veggie garden, and we grew all our own veggies. And you know, on a farm, when you've got at ready hand things like rotting silage and lots of cow manure and things, it's a lot easier to be a good gardener without requiring, you know, commercial and chemical inputs. So I was very fortunate then. And we managed to live on very little. We used to buy just things that we couldn't produce, like flour, caustic soda for making soap, and, you know, baking powder and a few things like that, sugar for preserving, but produced just about everything else we had. And of course, we had a plentiful supply of home-killed meat as well. So that was when I really started practicing it solidly. But I guess it was just the way I was brought up as well. My parents always, and that goes back to those times, you know, in the 50s and 60s, you had to be resilient. We had our house cow, even though we didn't live on a farm. My grandparents were just down the road with the farm. And I learned a lot from both my parents and grandparents. So I'm pleased to be able to pass that on to my kids and now my grandkids, who are passionate about learning about that sort of thing. And it makes me happy, because I know that in the future, no matter what comes, they'll probably be able to at least feed themselves to a certain extent and look after themselves.
Yep, definitely. And so what got you more interested in the community resilience? Because that's where a lot of your work is kind of focused these days, you know, as opposed to that self-sufficiency, you know, providing for yourself and your family.
Yeah, I guess I've always felt a need to help share skills in the community. And, you know, I've learned a lot from the community as well. It's not been all one-sided. So much of what I've learned is learned from not only my parents and grandparents, but from other people as well. I mean, just the other day at Crop Swap, I learned about kaiwa, which is an incredible plant that I'd never heard of before. So I'm certainly going to be growing that from now on. And, you know, you get back what you put out there, and it's beholden upon us all to share what we have and what we know, and help other people to become more resilient, more self-sustainable and things like that, because it's, I don't know, it's just, well, part of being a community. And I guess after 2015, when I did my postgrad in sustainable leadership and sustainable exchange, or ACA, alternative economics, I became a lot more focused on what how the communities can be more resilient. So and that was when I set up the Whangaroa's Resilient Communities Charitable Trust, and have been working on it since then. Of course, it helps that my children were growing up and I had more time on my hands, and that sort of thing. So that's where I came from.
Yeah, great. And so what would you say is the main focus of the trust?
The trust is all about improving resilience in 6 key areas. Now, we have been criticised a bit for not being focused on one thing, but you can't have resilience on a single issue. It can't have proper resilience because so many things interact. You can't grow food if you haven't got a bit of land. You can't get up in the morning with an urge to go out and grow something for yourself if you haven't got proper housing. If everything is combined into one whole as resilience. So we work in, or our main focus is housing, food resilience, environment. I mean, we can't do this if we have a crappy environment. Education, and that's not standard education. It's about learning about things that improve resilience and things, learning about new ways and all that. Economy, and that's all about how you can get a community operating when it has little money. The government controlled money in circulation. It's little things like time banking, like complementary currencies. It's about closed loop mutual credit groups. It's about savings pools and all those sort of things that help a community function when there's little money. So where did I get to?
Economy.
Education, environment,
food, housing.
Economy, food, housing. And the other one is community cohesion, because
yes,
my grandchildren are poking noses in the window. Yes, you can have that. They're making the most of raiding my pantry while I'm busy.
Go girls.
Anyhow, yeah, community cohesion. It goes back to what I was talking about there being a moral obligation to share what we know and also learn from one another as well.
Yes. Oh, that one really jumps out at me, actually, just given, the current climate and the division caused by people who are leading this country at the moment, and I think Barbara and I, really try to emphasize that in our, transition towns work is community cohesion as being a fundamental ingredient, in the success and the fulfillment of all of us. So that seems to have just been dropped by the wayside. So I'm really glad to see that is in there as a fundamental focus of, that's how you bring people together to achieve all of this other stuff, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. No man is an island. You can't do it on yourself, by yourself, even though you think you might be fully independent. You can't. You rely on other people. Unfortunately, what's happened is those other people, so many of our population are relying on are the government. And that instead of joining a community and learning what they can do for themselves, they're going out there and saying, Where's the government to give me housing? Where's the government to give me money? Where's the government to provide my food? And all that sort of thing. When we all know the government's bloody hopeless at providing stuff like that. It's up to us as communities to work together to do it. We don't, sure, we need governments for certain things, but we've just, to a certain extent, outsourced everything, even our health, to the damn government or corporate powers that be, and it's not sustainable, it's not resilient, and it's not good for us.
That's right. It's to the detriment of everything, really, isn't it? Yeah. Barbara, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's I just love our discussion. Thanks, ladies. I mean, the opposite was done the last 2 years to us. The separating us from each other, starting with the lockdown, decreasing community cohesion, and now with the mandates still in place, you can't, people who decide not to follow the mandates and they have to leave their job, some of them left their job and haven't got a new job, so they have to, unless we talked about this, I think, Asha, unless we had a saving pool ready, some money put together, I would have loved to have the possibility to say to these people, it doesn't matter, we can look after you for a while, but they have no other chance than going to NSD and asking for support.
Yes.
And so, but I think we're learning. I think all of us, a lot of people have learned. I can see even Freedom Village, in Wellington for 23 days. Look how fantastically resilient those people were. I mean, amazing. It was peaceful, free, lots of peace and love and cohesion and community, and even building their own toilets, which was
I agree.
You were down there, and experienced that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And, I was just talking to somebody the other day and I thought, if we could replicate the experience that I felt, which was one of the most incredible experiences I've had of being there at that Freedom Village on Parliament grounds, if we could replicate that into communities, and I mean, it just happened. It just all happened by everybody focusing on what was needed. I mean, if that was replicated within our communities up here, our communities would be vastly improved, and the love and the, to use one of JA's terms, the comradeship that I felt there was incredible. But it was love and a real desire for everybody to pitch in and help and do what they could. And it was not only the people that were there, the stuff I saw pouring into there, I thought, oh my goodness, we're going to have a problem at the end of this trying to deal with it. Well, of course, the police did. So we didn't have the problem with dealing with it at the end.
Wow.
What do you think was what were the drivers? Why was it so good? What could we model and bring into our communities to increase our community resilience in that way? What was so good?
I think being united for a common cause, despite what the media said about all sorts of causes, everyone was there for this common cause. They wanted the mandates to end. It was, ridiculous that they were introduced in the first place. So there was a common cause, and I think if we could find that common cause within a community that everyone is passionate about, then we would have a lot more buy-in. Unfortunately, what happens when you're trying to work in a community is you can have all the will in the world to help and to do things. But if people can't see the need, then they are not going to want to make the most of those experiences that are on offer. So if people think, oh, I'll just go down to the supermarket and buy, this chemically laden, preservative full packets of stuff that require no work for me to throw on the table, and I can get on with working to earn the money to buy that, they see no need to actually learn these skills. Whereas if they realize that if they could do some of the stuff themselves, they would you wouldn't have to work so hard to earn so much money, and would have a much more pleasurable life and probably longer life.
Yeah. Wow, touching on some really interesting stuff. And I totally, get what you said, Di, about the unifying factor is a common adversity, a common struggle. And whether it's a massive flood and people have to pull together to support each other. So what the mandates, the government did via these mandates and other policies that they're implemented is they created the climate for people to come together against, for a common cause. And that's the trigger. And that's so often the case, is that people don't tend to pull together until they absolutely have to. But I think a big part of that is the ignorance and the disempowerment of people that has gone on for a very long time, keeping people ignorant of what real food is, keeping people ignorant and disempowered, and on that treadmill, and lacking fulfillment, not knowing what fulfilling work is, not knowing, so and just, stuck on that treadmill. And then finally these shocks come along where, people actually they're forced to come together. But there's always some kind of triggering, event that unifies people for a common cause. And it's phenomenal what they can achieve when that happens, because the whole focus.
Oh, absolutely. And it's government's vested interest to keep everybody on this treadmill and working to buy the crap that they buy, because that's what provides the taxes and the GDP and everything else, which is the most ridiculous measure of success in a community, in a country, of all. It's
values are all upside down.
Absolutely. What about personal happiness? What about personal health? What about the love in the community? And while everybody's just working their backsides off to buy the useless crap that ends up in landfills, I don't know. We've got our priorities all wrong, I think. And until a lot more people realize that, I think we're just destined to follow the same path.
Well, I think we are in the midst of that transition right now. I mean,
I hope so.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that the power and control dynamic that the government operates under is not going to improve, and that they, that's the trajectory that they're on, is tighter controls, tighter squeezing, othering different people within our society. We're all people, but othering them and making them, the great unwashed. And so I don't actually see them changing. I don't see them realizing what they're actually doing. They're so disconnected, and I think that's forcing more people to wake up and go, hey, wait a minute. This is not us. This is not what we want. This is not okay. We're going to focus on this over here. And I can see that is happening a lot right now. And it happens in waves. And of course, associated with it is the huge trauma of having to let go of what you've, all
Yeah.
and be brave and adventurous and step into something completely different. Yeah. But
I
it is
agree.
happening.
Yeah, I agree. And unfortunately, the more the government seems to feel that they are losing the plot, the more controls they put in, and the more we head down the slippery path to dictatorship. But the more they do that, the more people become disillusioned and hopefully wake up. But I think it's beholden upon us to try and help those people as they start waking up to have peace with that wakening up and not a grief, and just slowly make it more and more resilient and real.
Yeah, definitely.
I've in addition, I'm thinking of, what we can, I mean, it like what you ladies said, it's like an abusive partner, the more you go away, the more abuse and control will happen. And that's all clear, but nobody can dictate us to a few things they can't do, and having more love and yet more community, like we've been doing the last 2 years. And I honestly, I think on Facebook, I commented after the 23-day and the police overreach there, that probably the love on the forecourt was too much for narcissists or for psychopathic personalities. They just can't, honestly, they can't handle it, because they would have to get in touch with their feelings. And that's the last thing they want to do, because that's where all the pain and the hurt is. And then I was just listening to Amy talking to the counterspin guys, and there's another thing we can do, and that is probably a sustainable solution, maybe, and that is, apparently we have 85% who are vaccinated. Let's just assume that their kind of thinking, or a lot of those people's thinking, is in line with what the government. We're still 15% who are not, who for some reason already are thinking different. And she was saying, if we all pull those 15% all pull our money out of the bank, those 15%, just leave the most necessary money in, just to pay your bills online, which we have to do. But that is a lot of money. 15% of those people do it. I don't know how safe it would be, and do we all have to hide it under our pillow or what? But I think that's really would be starving the beast, because the banks don't have that money. We know that they don't have that money. So I think it's an empowering thing to do, I think. So anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I've been pondering that too. But, with every action, there's a counteraction. And I wonder if it wouldn't be very attractive for a lot of gangs to identify those that are unvaccinated and target them and ransack their houses to find this money. I'm sort of trying to think of a way to where you could deposit it safely, and perhaps it's something like the cooperative bank, which is owned by the account holders, and to all just head to that.
Unfortunately, the cooperative bank has mandated their staff as far as
well, that's a really unpleasant thing too.
I mean,
and a lot of them have, but we're not going to find a perfect solution, I don't think. And I've been pondering it for a while, and who knows what the solution is. I know of somebody that actually had just on $1 million in cash drawn out of a bank, and $1 million, in actual cash. and had to order it quite some time online. But the angst that he went through, it was just because of a sale of a property. It wasn't that they were that rich. The angst that they went through having that sitting around was tremendous. I know not many of us would have that much sitting around, but there's I don't know, I think it's worthy of almost a big group discussion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. This whole alternative currencies and alternative trading and savings and all of that, there's a lot to it. And I know some people are interested in cryptocurrencies, while other people are interested more in alternative local currencies. You know, and I suppose in a sense with the local currencies, there is a slight safety aspect in the fact that it can only be spent within a certain region. So any abuse or theft of, you know, a major amount of that, and I'm sure people wouldn't be hoarding it in large amounts anyway. And I know people who are investing in gold and silver because they feel that's the, you know, the safest way of doing it. You know, and in terms of how you store it, yes, that's another question, really.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, I thought it might be good to maybe get into a couple of just topics briefly and just see what your ideas are, both of you, on some of these areas. One that we haven't talked about a lot is transport. Now, with the price of gas going up, like you wouldn't believe, you know, this is something that we really have to start thinking about soon. And, you know, carpooling, I suppose, is something that's to be encouraged, definitely. And we're kind of spread out, you know, small rural townships and communities. So it's another kind of challenge, you know, as opposed to being in a city that already has an existing public transport infrastructure.
Absolutely, Asha. And that is the problem, is there's no interconnecting transport around these communities. And it reminds me about 5 or 6 years ago, possibly more, one of our resilient community projects was a project plan to develop an app for the far north of like a ride share app, where, you know, somebody wanted to go to Kaitaia to Kirikiri, could just hop on there, find who was going down, share the petrol costs, because that's so important now, and make more use of sharing transport. And again, that comes back to community, but unfortunately there wasn't the need for it 5 or 6 years ago. So it was another one of our failures, or should I say we just parked it. But maybe now is the time to pull out that. I'm just thankful that I've been, you know, I've had an electric car for some 6 years or so, and it's really coming into its own now.
Well, I have to say, Di, you know, with a lot of this stuff, we're just so far ahead of the game, you know, rather than it being a failure. You were just so far ahead of the game. You've done the groundwork, and, you know, and these things are ready to blossom, you know, when they're ready to blossom. And it's, you know, so it takes getting to that moment when people are ready before they, you know, take off. So
thank you for that kind spin on that. I feel as though I run around like a headless chook sometimes, trying to, you know, think of things to do, and then oops, that didn't work. Put that aside, oops, that didn't work. But yeah, I do have a huge library of stuff stored back there that can be easily reinvigorated now that the time is right. And you're right that the time needs to be right to implement these things. I remember working on a community currency back in 2016, I think it was, and oh my goodness, was I shot down in flames by a lot in the community about this weird woman talking about, you know, something. I was at that time I was a counsellor, and I had letters to the lawyer telling him to get rid of me, and all sorts. And I thought,
is that right?
That's not right.
Yeah, well, you know, some of this stuff can be just so far out of some people's realities because they've never needed to think about it, you know, and so it does, you know, it can seem way out until you're being forced into that position where, oh, God, I need it.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And all of a sudden, yeah.
And,
so you're not crazy, you're just a forward thinker.
all that criticism back those days about the currency came from the people that were wealthy and didn't need it. And I just kept saying to them, you know, if you don't need it, you're not going to be forced into you needing it. But please just step aside and don't stop the people that do need to use it using it. And unfortunately, they did. That there's too many people out there that have enough of what they need and just don't give a damn about other people. And that's not community, but unfortunately that's how our government likes it. That's how, you know, it's all this never-ending drive to improve yourself and accumulate as much as you can so you can spend as much as you can so you can pay enough taxes to right. Don't get me on that.
Yeah. No, I know. Barbara, did you have any thoughts about transport? Is that something that you've, you know, been thinking about?
Oh, Di and I remember 6 years ago going down to Whangaroa and try, you know, when we met up with the crowdfunding people and so I've got to find out exactly how it works, but my very clever brother in Germany, he's 11 years older than me. He's been running a project. He calls it the community. I think he calls it community bus. So he had photovoltaic systems in his house, even his garage, and everywhere, and outside plugs for people to come and charge electric vehicles. I think 20, 30 years ago, people didn't even know what photovoltaic was when he had that installed. So he got a few local businesses and the council on board. And then it's a car sharing kind of system that eventually the council is organizing, but the businesses are using the cars as advertising space. So I'll find out a bit about, but I think that's probably quite a good solution. So during the time when the car is not needed, then the car gets shared around in the community, you know. But I'll find out how they operate it and see if that would be a solution.
Yeah, great. I think our communities would just greatly benefit from, even if it was once or twice a week, a community bus that did the rounds, maybe went from the crop swap to the left bank, and you know, or you know, a few of the regular events, because there's a lot of people that want to come as well that actually don't have transport, and so they miss out all the time. And then now there's people who it's just too expensive. It's just really. So a community bus would be fantastic, and I love the idea of the advertising, you know, as long as it's local and fits all of those, you know, you're supporting local businesses that are worth supporting.
And if we had a
could put the word out on Time Bank, you know, whether but yes, I think it's a discussion we must have in a larger group as well. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we could find somebody that's good at building apps, and I think we could have something up pretty quick where we could do a ride share thing through the far north. It's just old ducks like me don't have those new skills. But then again, that's all about sharing, isn't it? So I'd welcome somebody, you know, with app building capability getting in touch, and we can work together on that. And that would be a quick, easy one. And then we can start working on the bus.
Yes. I think at the crop swap on Saturday, it was mentioned about carpooling apps. Were you there when that was mentioned, Barbara? Because I think there are a couple existing ones, and people were trying to figure out which one was the most suitable, or if any of them were suitable for up here. But they might be more focused So there may be an existing one that we could use.
Yeah.
So that's something to look into for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So food is something that we are like really, focused on, because it just seemed like the perfect beginning point and the most fundamental of things, really, that we all need. So that's been really cool, having the crop swaps and just bringing people together and encouraging them to grow and to share and connecting them with these resources. It's I put so much more in my garden in the last 2 years than I have full stop. So that's been really amazing. And then there's other things. I think it's slowly evolving. Another thing that the community bus could be involved in was that I see that there's opportunities to actually pick up produce from people who aren't attending the crop swaps or can't, because they're busy or whatever, but they do have fruit or whatever to share, but can't get it to the swap. So that would be the other thing that such a bus or someone who's going around could do is pick up stuff and take it to the crop swap.
Yep.
And then we're also getting into a little bit of people taking things from the table, bulk apples and whatnot, and then processing them and then bringing them back to share as their applesauce and the muffins and what have you, which is really cool as well. We're lucky we live in a food rich region. I think it's particularly with the orchards, and then a lot of home large home garden blocks that are really rich with lots of fruit trees and what have you, that I think that aren't getting picked a lot of the time. I've got a friend with an olive orchard, and he doesn't do anything with his trees. So how many hundreds of kilos of olives not being eaten every year by the birds, but could be being eaten by people.
And citrus also up here. I mean, it's crazy how much citrus is produced and just rots on the ground. Why the heck we're importing oranges from Australia and places like that to sell in the supermarkets, I don't know. We're completely self-sufficient in things like that as an area, but it's just the distribution and getting it out there. So there's no need for lots of food to be bought in along like that.
No, that's right.
And there's so many business opportunities to provide people jobs within the food industry. But, where are all those jobs? They're down in Auckland. So it forces people to go to the cities where they're just treated like little ants in little houses and running around. So never mind.
Yeah, definitely with food, which, like you said, Di, in the beginning, everything links into everything else. With good food, you have a quality of health. You're a guarantee of good health.
Yeah.
What I've mentioned that over the last 10 years a few times, and I don't really know why that hasn't been picked up by any of our growers or farmers. This concept of, it started in Germany. It was called solidarity agriculture. And I think it was exported to the US as CSA.
Yes.
We spoke about where a community funds a farmer or a group of farmers. I mentioned it to Marty, and Marty said his concern would be that if there is a bad crop, he then couldn't provide what he promised to provide. But there must be a way around it. I get their the Solidarity guys. I get their newsletter every month, and they've just grown. There's just so many communities like that all over Germany now. So that, I think, would be maybe it would be interesting to discuss that within a group as well, and get some farmers on board. Just give it a try. And I know the farmer, all they have to do is calculate these are the costs. If I want to give, supply a community of 20 people with, I don't know, cauliflower and broccoli, and that's the amount of work I have to put in. That's the amount of money. So if everyone pays a monthly fee of whatever, $20 or I don't know, then the farmer is being looked after. They have a guarantee also that someone is buying their stuff, and everyone wins.
Yeah, I think it can be.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I know I saw that or I heard you say the other day, sending something down for grading. All our stuff commercially grown gets down to Auckland for grading, and then used to be shipped out, I don't know, overseas, and then the crap stuff comes back into our supermarket and we pay a fortune for it. That's just not sustainable at all.
I definitely think that we need a big community discussion about the viability of food and the resilience of food for the far north, and develop some systems that work actually here. And I do, we've done quite a bit of work on that as Resilient Communities Trust, and we do have some systems that we do believe will work. But like we were talking about before, it just needs the time to be right. Yeah.
Hopefully before we're all starving.
Yeah.
It's not just the stuff. And I was thinking when you explained the drivers in Wellington, in Freedom Village, I was thinking back, of course, to the earthquake and how fabulously well people work together. And I always call it my camping ground philosophy, which I had as a child. As a child, I observed, we used to go camping to Italy every year. And I observed that people arrive there and there is a community. Back then it was a community, regardless of what jobs people had or what positions or any status, but people were just a community, helped each other. And if someone, like one neighbor lost his tent, it burned down, and everyone pitched in and bought new stuff, from the money that everyone pitched in. And then something changed when then people started to unpark their cars, and suddenly one had a little VW and the other one had a big Merc, and also you're going home, back to my work. And suddenly they came back into their role, into their status, and things changed. And very similar in the earthquake. It's a long story to connect, but people just held together. They were just looking after each other. And one person's house was destroyed, the other person came and helped, until the mayoral fund was distributed. After 4 or 5 days, the big man with the big coffers came into the emergency center and distributed the money. And then people started fighting over it, and you're not entitled to that, and I couldn't believe what I saw, honestly. So I think that's probably where the difference also was in Freedom Village, that the whole country sent things down, food and money and support. And so we need to reproduce that. We need to get it on board without people suffering, of course.
Yes. Unite in a common cause.
And hold that vibration even when that adversity is no longer there. Because it's when that, the trigger or the challenge or the crisis is finished, what are we left with and how are we left operating? Are we still going to be at that high frequency, that aroha, aroha being present in everything we do, which is what it was like. Is that still going to be the thing, or are we going to go back to that competitive, gravitate back towards that, the old ways of doing things? I wanted to go back to what you mentioned about the CSA, Barbara, and Marty's comment. And I think a fundamental part of the success of that is the diversity of what is being grown. So that when one crop does fail, and that does happen, that it doesn't really matter. It's all just part of, you know, the larger, greater whole of a whole diversity, you know, of things that are being grown and offered. So that, you know, so I think that's something that we can, yeah, definitely talk with him further about. And recently there was a post by a localish, I think up near Kaitaia organic orchard. They put a post on Facebook saying they had $15 boxes of fruit, and it listed exactly what was in the box. You know, there was some bananas and apples and oranges and lemons and grapes and what have you, and it was $15 couriered anywhere within the country, including the postage. You know, and then I think it was shared a few times, and now I've seen they've posted up that the demand was so great they can't take any more orders. They don't know if they have enough fruit to go out to everybody. They had 70 people get in touch with them in the last 2 days and request, you know, one of these $15 boxes. So people just need to do it, you know, and that's an existing orchard, you know, and they just need to be a little bit organized, just a little bit organized.
Yeah.
And the demand is already there. You know, if it's a reasonable price and you can get it to people, then, you know,
there is, I mean, very many years ago, they started one of the first boxes like that started. They called it Ubi, and it came out of the Inspiral group, and Ubi stands for out of our own backyard.
Yeah.
And like, again, you know, obviously things were going too well for us having to see the need to actually do that. But it has to be a local thing. I really struggle with the idea of having to rely on courier services or long distance transport, because that's, again, at some point just not sustainable unless we have a solar powered charge station and electric vehicles. Then, you know, then that would probably make sense. But this whole transporting thing is, so
absolutely. And fresh is best, you know. As soon as that's picked, you know, that's the peak moment to eat it, if possible. All right. Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to mention, or, you know, maybe share a little bit before we finish up on your vision of what a resilient community looks like?
Not really. I think it would become a lot more resilient if there were if we built more on this community cohesion. And you guys are doing a wonderful job with the crop swaps and transition towns. I mean, that's really coming into its own, really. I think that's just shows the potential of what can be done. I think we need to come together as a community, and I've been discussing that with some of our fellow trustees to actually have a joint discussion. We had a great conference in 2015 that brought a lot of people together, and I feel a need to do that again, just so that we have everybody's input and actually have a plan of how and who and why and where we're going to do this. So
yeah, cool.
Maybe it's a matter of watch this space.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think the last couple of times I think we've been mentioning a food resilience strategy, hui, you know, to really just help to tie things, because there's so much going on at the moment. And of course, you know, the more we can synergize and weave what we're doing together, the stronger and more effective it'll be. And yeah, definitely, that's on the cards for sure.
And I definitely think this is not just a little blip that we're going to get over these current times. We're heading headlong into what could be disaster if we don't all pull finger and you know, look after ourselves, really.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But that also means it's a time of opportunity. So
Absolutely.
let's keep focused on all those opportunities to fill the, needs that are going to be coming, which is, what we're all doing. So, Barbara.
What I've been mentioning a few times, and I will get onto it in the next couple of weeks, is to organize the social presencing theater.
Yes.
That's this facilitation method out of MIT, which is a somatic experience in order to create a solution. So one of the I'll have to explain it a little bit and send you the link to it, Asha and Di, if you're interested, because I think a lot of problems we turn around in circles because we're using the same words, the same vocabulary, the same phrases, and it's very difficult. You just mentioned the word, what you envision a resilient community, and we've got to tap into more of our skills that we have as humans to create maybe a new word, a new way that we don't know yet how to express because we don't have the word for it. And for solution finding like that, the SPT, the social presencing theater, may just be quite helpful. So we have to get onto that. And yes, whoever is listening in or watching this video, give us a bell, give us a call, maybe to your email, Asha or myself, and tell us that you're interested in doing that. It's a little bit like psychodrama. It's a little bit like family constellation work, but it's focused on solution finding.
Perfect.
If you look at it gives you a chance to look at the problem as if it were a statue, a 4D statue, and that just allows you to experience it with a detachment. Anyway, I'm pretty confident that it is a great way to just look whether there is another way of finding solutions.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is. Yeah. So thank you for that, Barbara. And that just, makes me think that Rob Hopkins, one of the original founders of the Transition Town Network, really likes to bring to people's awareness the power of imagination. Of being creative, and from your imagination is where we can find these new solutions, and enjoy the creative process, of doing that. And I mean, who knows what's possible? So yeah.
And it's completely, that part of our brain or our being has been, of course, completely, or that was attempted to shut that down through all this fear that has been created. You can't be creative and have imagination if you're constantly bombarded through media and constantly think that the whole world around you is falling over, dying of whatever.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's leave it there for today. We're going to just do another short video on some of what's happening over at the left bank. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and watch a few of our other ones if you're interested in resilience. So thank you, Di and Barbara.
Thank you, Di and Asha.
Thanks, great. Asha. Thanks, Barbara. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies.